And what in heaven's name brought you to Casablanca?
My health. I came to Casablanca for the waters.
The waters? What waters? We're in the desert.
I was misinformed.
He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
You're tearing me apart!
What?
You say one thing, he says another, and everybody changes back again!
Top news stories of the week. Time to find out once again with Megan Olson and News of the Week on The Al Travis Show.
I love having her on. It's Megan Olson with News of the Week, and basically she takes the top stories of the week that have been tweeted, retweeted, and all the rest, and we discuss them here. Megan, how are you?
Good. Happy to be back. It's funny. I've got like 100 tabs open on my laptop, and I guarantee you 90% of them have the word fraud or Minnesota governor in the headline. So,
well, this is the one I really, really want to talk about because I don't even think it's a news story. And I didn't think it was a news story when it came out. And then yesterday, KARE 11, Channel 9, they all did stories on the non-news story, and I want to get your thoughts. So over the weekend, I mean, it was Monday morning, the Star Trib comes out with the hard-hitting news story that Trump says there's $1 billion in fraud in the state of Minnesota. And they wanted to debunk that. There's no proof of $1 billion. And you read this whole thing, and they're somehow trying to make me think that if it just gets to 900 mil, I should be counting my lucky stars. Like Donald Trump has never exaggerated anything in his life, and does it matter? So today's story, there's one from KARE 11. Some guy comes on and says, $1 billion's probably about right, seeing how 300 million has already been through the court system with feeding our futures. Channel 9, that we know about. Channel 9 comes and says, yeah, I'm looking at 800 mil myself. And I'm like, okay, let's go with Fox 9. No friend of Trump's. Is 800 million not enough to get teed up? How is this story about it not hitting $1 billion? This isn't the Jerry Lewis telethon.
You do see a lot of mainstream media. I mean, I even saw something that said Minnesota's in an okay financial position, but fraud is still top of mind. Somehow trying to add like lividity to this issue. And I mean, you even see it kind of goes both ways. You have some mainstream media that are leaning into it more, some that are trying to say, oh no, everything's, rainbows and sunshines, rainbows and sunshine. But it really is mind-boggling to me as someone who sits here and sifts through all of this media to see that the angles that we're going after here, and really the dollar amount doesn't matter. What matters is that the fraud happened, and what are we doing about it? Are we going to elect the person who has been kind of at the top of all of this, who really isn't taking accountability? I mean, he said in an interview, oh, I take accountability for the people that are in jail. Who led those investigations? Who sounded the alarm bells? It was the FBI. It was the federal government.
And that U.S. Attorney General actually said in like the autism thing, that's 100% stolen. He said none of that went where it's supposed to go. And that was 200 million. That gets us to 5, and we have 2 projects that we talked about. Here's the problem with it, Megan, and maybe you can tell me. How is that the news story? The idea that Trump said $1 billion, and now this is a 2-day news story, when they don't do that much investigating into the actual fraud itself. We've been going through this for a year. You and I have been talking about it for years, and the story is it doesn't get to $1 billion. And here's my point. Didn't we talk about it a week ago? Maybe it was 2. The Star Trib did that story where the footings was falling out from Trump, or from Walz, right? They did a story saying that there are actually some people in the Democratic Party that think he's going to bring the ticket down. And I said, watch out. He's going to send an angry letter to the Star Trib. He's not going to take that, because I think it was somebody on one of his old commissions running that paper. Anyway, that all being said, this story comes out. Any chance this story came out because all the rest of the bad press in the world was against Walz and fraud? I'm just being, cynical. Mm-hmm. But it seems like this non-story story's got us talking for 2 days about the actual number.
Now we kind of have more comprehensive reporting of what all of these great local outlets have been doing. I think Fox 9 and KARE 11, they've all really kind of beefed up their investigative reporting and kind of putting together these timelines. But now you have kind of these bigger players in the media market coming in and pulling things together. And as I'm reading through it, I'm reminded of things that I'm sure we talked about on this show, but we just glossed over it, that are pretty significant. I think one is back in 2022, 2022, state employees raised flags about the Feeding Our Future stuff. Walz blamed the judge in 2022. He said, oh, the resume payments happened. It's the judge's fault. The judge issues a statement saying, actually, Governor, you're mistaken on this. And that's a big thing to me. But I mean, in the grand
Ellison used that line again. Ellison used that line again on some national news this week as well. A judge said we had to. Like, we already litigated that. Somebody go back out and show. The judge wrote a letter somewhere. It was really weird and said, no, I told him you're fine. And so they're using that. That's interesting. Oh, I love that. But this is kind of like Walz running for president. A lot of us knew a lot of things about Walz, but the rest of the world figured it out, even some Minnesotans, about things that are like, oh, he really did that? He really said that? This is what's going on here because the national news isn't going to let this slide. I don't think.
Well, yeah, and then, I mean, even too, you think about, I don't think the national news will let it slide either, but then you have representatives in Congress like Ilhan Omar who are coming out and saying, oh, if there's, linkage of money to Al-Shabaab or whatever, I trust that, I'm pretty confident any link is going to be, found out, or it's going to be some sort of false claim. But who are you relying on for that? Are you relying on our governor, the one who's in charge of the state, to be kind of helping to uncover this? Are you relying on the FBI, the federal government? You've openly spoken out against them before. It's just kind of a weird.
She had said, I watched that. She said something like it would be the FBI's or the judicial's fault if that money was stolen because they should have done something about it. That's what we're talking about. Why did you set up? Yes.
We talked last week on the show about these 450 or so DHS employees who have this kind of whistleblower Twitter and being shut down repeatedly and saying, oh, we were talking about this. I mean, as early as 2019. And I said this last week on the show too, that it seems like the pandemic really was the most opportune time to kind of take advantage of these programs. And then couple that with the trifecta, the DFL trifecta in 2023, you have this massive explosion of these programs. I think it was $17 billion in more spending that came out of that just made these programs grow, I mean, upwards of, I think we've talked about as much as 300%.
Yeah.
It was the most opportune time for fraud was the pandemic. And I think in part because of the way it was handled.
Well, yeah, so the pandemic comes, we send everybody home, we send all kinds of money out to say, hey, we got to keep these businesses afloat, do whatever. I get it. That's 2020. By 2023, most of us believe the pandemic was pretty much over, but we had the $17 billion. We could have given it back. That doesn't sound like it makes a lot of fun. So we just start, and that's where things, $17 billion. Let's run it like it was the COVID deal. I'm sorry, Megan, I'm not a smart man. You set something up, you want to help autistic kids, that's wonderful, and I'm behind you 100%. But Al's Autism Center doesn't need anybody who knows how to do education. I don't have a clue. Doesn't have any background in medicine or any other thing. I just set up Al's Autism Center, and I can start making money. Can you tell me a lower bar you got to set? I mean, my barber gets checked once a year to make sure the little blue goo's on my comb.
That's the real unfortunate part about this whole process is we've been talking about this for years. Employees have been sounding the alarm bells for years. Legislators have been doing the same, and nothing's really changed. And now you have people who really do rely on these programs and the good actors in the system. I know particularly those in the disabled community and many on Medicaid who are now kind of paying the price because the administration is kind of halt, no payments are going out until we get this under control. But we've been saying this for years. So at what point, why just shut it down now? Why didn't we start implementing measures back then? Well,
that's the one in the news now, right? They're going to have this thing for disabled folks, disabled homes for folks with disabilities. We're turning that off for 6 months. Well, good God, how does somebody with a disability take 6 months off without the pay? How about you've taken the last 7 years and done a methodical look into that? Now we don't have, you know what I'm saying? 6 months' time, you should have done it for 7 years. I'm more concerned about the autistic kids that did not get the funding that we wanted to give to them. The SNAP benefits program, Trump saying, we'll turn SNAP off if you don't turn your SNAP data to us. And they're like, well, we're not going to do that. Why in God's green earth not? Help these people out. And these guys, I'm more concerned Minnesotans want to help, but it's not getting there. We're flooding the zone with cash, but it's not getting where it's got to go. That's the bigger issue, right? All right. And we have another one to talk about. I got to think you've heard this thing about paid family leave.
Absolutely, Al.
I want to talk
about that and more fraud in the Twin Cities, too.
We'll do that right after this. I've got our Megan's News in Review.
You need a friend at the Capitol who knows how to get things done.
And you're in luck, because that's exactly who we are, your friends at the Capitol. and we deliver results.
At Momentum Advocacy, we bring decades of experience in lobbying, public affairs, and crisis communications.
From local nonprofits to national corporations, we help you move policy, manage your media, and make your voice heard.
We're not just seasoned pros, we're essential partners.
Momentum Advocacy, your friends at the Capitol. Learn more at momentum-advocacy.com.
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Don't need to ask him his opinion more than once. Al Travis on the Al Travis Show.
I've got her Megan's news in review. Megan, real quick, the paid family leave. This thing's kick-starting here in about 3 weeks. And as you start getting there, the lack of rails, that's what we call it, all these problems. We don't put enough rails on a lot of these programs. Paid family leave. No limit on the number of people who can care for somebody. I've got 6 brothers and sisters, right? There's 7 of us. My dad gets sick. All 7 of us can take paid family leave to watch my dad. Like, well, geez, who's going to monitor that? Here's one for you. If you had a child in 2025, this year, you can apply and get
it, essentially.
Backdating it. Oh my goodness. Really? You're going to, and the company's going to have to pay for that. Now, I don't know of another program that literally you can get the benefits from time past. I don't know where this goes. Tell me this isn't ripe for fraud. There's no, I mean, you could actually have 2 jobs. You can take family leave from one, keep the other one, and get paid from the first one. Don't tell me this isn't right. The timing of this
could not be worse. This is awful timing for this to be rolling out in the midst of all of the fraud conversations and just the lack of guardrails. Again, this is another one of those pieces of legislation from the 2023 DFL trifecta, kind of a rushed proposal. You had chambers and small businesses really sounding alarm bells because it's a sweeping policy, so there's no exemptions for those smaller businesses that many do already have some sort of program. It's just a big mandate. But what's interesting about this is that federal employees, postal workers, and federal employees and postal workers aren't covered by default, but they can choose to opt in. And I thought that was strange. That, I mean, I know it's a state program, but still, choose to, like you're
See-
mandating this for the entire private sector. Can't you do the same for?
And what does it do for, let's just say, a teachers union, right? The union's been fighting for time off, this and that. Is this in addition to what they're contractual to have? If a school district who's in, negotiation saying, well, here's the federal law, we're going to take out all the stuff you've argued about for years because there's no reason. Well, we're giving you more than 20 weeks. We're out, and we're paying for that anyway.
To keep their better program, they're not mandated to. I mean, they might as well not.
The school is going to say we're pay for it twice. We have to pay the 1% or 1.5%, whatever that tax is. We're paying it anyway. The government's going to give you that. I'm not doubling up and giving you it on the other side. I think this is going to ruin a ton of already good programs by a lot of folks. If you're in a big organization, they're not going to double dip to pay twice when you go out. I don't think they have any clue what's going to happen when this thing starts in January.
I agree. I think paid family leave is a good concept. It's a good idea. It just needs to be done thoughtfully and in a way that doesn't penalize those businesses that are already going above and beyond, which I realize is a difficult task, but that's why I always say good policy takes time. This was rushed, and I think we're going to pay
guardrails, they can't even tell you who legitimately is someone you can take off for. Mother, father, daughter, kids, we understand that. But if you think the lady next door has always been a mother figure for you, that fits. It's like, what? There is no limit right now on telling us who is and isn't out as far as qualifying. So just because we've seen a little bit of fraud in Minnesota these days, tell me people aren't going to jump on that bet.
Well, it's crazy to me. We're pausing all these other programs. Why not pause this one too? And let's figure out maybe some prevention measures before we even get started into this. That's just an idea. I don't know.
You and your common sense. We don't need that around here in Minnesota. Wouldn't that make some sense? Let's make sure this is anyway. And I presume this is all done online, that sort of thing, right? I'm not having to go to my Department of Human Services. So do we even have a computer program that can handle that? You just got to fill in the check. I'm this guy.
I know the state has their own program, and then you can opt into, there's some private options as well. And I know a lot of private employers are moving in that direction because they know the state's program is just going to be a mess. So.
All right, good times, good times. Any other stuff? You had something more fraud in St. Paul, Minneapolis?
I did, and it was interesting because I think it shows that cities are not immune to fraud and problems as well. And there was an interesting story out of St. Paul, which I think is extra interesting just given November.
Love this.
And Mayor Carter not getting elected to another term. But St. Paul alleges that a contractor made off with about $1 million that they gave them.
Please, we're not gonna round up. The Star Trib's gonna do a deal. $900,000.
$900,000 in damages that St. Paul's seeking from this group that it was meant to be for a financial literacy program. It was this landmark thing that Mayor Carter started with the College Bound program, helping for kids who were born after 2020 have an account basically seeded with a certain number of dollars as start money. I think it was $50, and then receive financial literacy education, throughout their lifetime until they became adults. Great thing. I'm all for financial literacy, but this black femme firm out of Maryland or something just took the money and ran, as it seems right now. That's why St. Paul.
Doesn't this just the irony of it all? We want to talk about no guardrails. You're going to buy a financial literacy program and pay up front. They pay. The guys didn't show up at meetings. They canceled all their stuff. They haven't delivered one thing to the school, and they got $900K for that. Yeah, I think the first thing they got to do is
start this year, and the company is saying, no, we didn't do anything wrong. They're reporting, really great revenue. Their tax filings show. I don't know, just a strange thing.
I think financial literacy, that's the first thing the St. Paul school district should look at is how could we do a better job of that? It's a friend of mine who put a meme out. I think I used this yesterday, that how to avoid getting scammed on the internet, the book. He's been waiting for it for 4 months. It hasn't shown up yet. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what happened to St. Paul. Megan, I love having you on the show. I think you know that. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. We're approaching the end of the year, so one of these times we'll have to have a little recap, best of 2025 shows. We'll talk about everything we've talked about this year, top news stories. So we'll be back next week to talk about top Minnesota news on the Al Travis Show with Megan's News and Review.
Love it.